Mother demands black woman move for her child, shocked when the flight attendant takes her side. I don't care what your ticket says. My son needs to sit by the window. Move, now. The blonde woman's voice slices through the cramped airplane cabin, drawing all eyes to row 14 where Amara Williams sits frozen, boarding pass clutched in her trembling hand. The mother towers over her, a toddler balanced on one hip, her expression a storm of entitlement and impatience. Amara feels the weight of 24 stares burning into her skin, some curious, some uncomfortable, some already taking sides without knowing a single fact. "Ma'am, this is my assigned seat," Amara says, her voice steady despite the familiar knot forming in her stomach. She's been here before, different settings, different faces, same story. At 42, with 15 years as a pediatric surgeon, Amara Williams has saved more children's lives than this woman will likely ever know. Yet here she sits, being treated like an inconvenience, an obstacle, something to be moved aside. The mother scoffs, leaning closer. "Look, my son gets anxious if he can't see the clouds. You can sit anywhere else." She gestures dismissively toward the aisle seat. "It's not like it matters to you." The implications hang in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. Amara feels her pulse quicken, the beginning of that familiar battle between dignity and peace. Don't make a scene. Don't be the angry black woman. Don't give them a reason. The calculations race through her mind as passengers shift uncomfortably in their seats, pretending not to listen while absorbing every word. Just as Amara opens her mouth to respond, a crisp voice cuts through the tension. "Is there a problem here?" The flight attendant materializes beside them, her posture professional but her eyes sharp with assessment. Her name tag reads Gloria, and something in her stance suggests this isn't her first rodeo. The mother immediately redirects, her voice shifting to a sugary plea. "Oh, thank goodness. My little boy has terrible anxiety and he absolutely needs a window seat. I was just asking if..." Gloria's raised hand stops the flow of words. "Let me see your boarding passes, please." Her tone is neutral, but there's steel beneath the courtesy. The mother fumbles in her bag, producing 2 crumpled tickets with an air of certainty. "See, we're in this row." Gloria studies the boarding passes, then looks at Amara's. Her eyes flick up, meeting Amara's with a flash of understanding that speaks volumes. The flight attendant turns to the mother, and what happens next leaves everyone in the nearby rows in stunned silence. But to understand how we got here, how a routine flight from Chicago to San Francisco became the backdrop for a confrontation that would change multiple lives and ultimately go viral across social media, we need to go back 12 hours, to the early morning when Amara Williams received the call that would send her racing to the airport in the first place. The bedside phone rings at 4:37 a.m., tearing Amara from a rare, deep sleep. After 3 consecutive surgeries the day before, she had collapsed into bed without even removing her earrings. Her hand fumbles across the nightstand, knocking over a glass of water before finding the vibrating phone. "Dr. Williams," she answers, her voice instantly alert despite her exhaustion. "Amara, it's Daniel." Her brother's voice is tight, controlled in that way that immediately sets off alarms in Amara's mind. Daniel doesn't call at this hour unless it's an emergency. "It's Mom. She's had a stroke. San Francisco General. They're saying it's serious." The world narrows to a pinpoint of focused clarity. "I'm on my way. Have they done a CT?" "Yes, clot-busting drugs administered about 20 minutes ago. The neurologist is waiting for you. I told them you're coming. They know who you are." Of course they do. Though Amara practices in Chicago, her research on pediatric neurosurgery is known throughout the medical community. The irony isn't lost on her. Having spent her career saving other people's children, she now races across the country to save her mother. "I'll get the first flight out. Keep her talking if she's conscious. Keep reminding her who she is, who you are. Tell her I'm coming." Amara is already moving, pulling a suitcase from her closet, mentally calculating what she needs. "I love you, Daniel. Stay strong." "Love you too, sis. Hurry." The line goes dead, and Amara stands motionless for 3 heartbeats, allowing herself this brief moment of fear before locking it away. Then she springs into action, her movements precise and efficient. She's not just a daughter right now. She's a surgeon responding to an emergency. The personal panic is compartmentalized, stored away where it can't interfere with what needs to be done. The memory of her mother's 68th birthday celebration just 2 months ago flashes through her mind. Josephine Williams, elegant in a royal blue dress that complemented her dark skin, laughing as she opened gifts at the small family gathering. "I don't need presents," she had insisted. "Having both my children in the same room is gift enough." But her delight at the leather-bound collection of James Baldwin essays Amara had found was unmistakable. Josephine had been an English teacher for 40 years, instilling a love of literature in generations of Chicago students, including her own children. Amara pulls clothes from her closet without much thought, practical, comfortable items for what might be a long hospital stay. Into her medical bag go her stethoscope, a penlight, her tablet with access to medical journals, and the prescription reading glasses she still isn't used to needing. Last, she takes the framed photo from her bedside table, her mother, Daniel, and herself at Daniel's law school graduation 5 years ago. 3 smiling faces, arms linked, triumph and pride radiating from them all. If you want to see how this unfolds and whether Amara makes it to her mother in time, stay with us through this incredible story of courage, confrontation, and unexpected connections. Amara's apartment is on the 23rd floor of a sleek high-rise overlooking Lake Michigan. At this hour, the lake is an ink-black void dotted with the distant lights of boats. As she waits for the elevator, she calls the airline, her medical credentials helping her secure a seat on the 7:15 a.m. flight to San Francisco. The mechanical female voice of the automated system informs her that the ticket will cost $1,784, a last-minute, one-way fare that makes her wince despite her comfortable surgeon's salary. Money that would normally give her pause is now irrelevant. She would pay 10 times that amount without hesitation. The night doorman, Eugene, looks up in surprise as she emerges into the lobby with her suitcase. In 3 years of living in the building, Amara has never seen him anything but immaculately professional, his silver-streaked hair always perfectly combed, his uniform crisp. "Dr. Williams, is everything all right?" "Family emergency," she explains briefly. "I need a taxi to O'Hare as quickly as possible." Eugene doesn't waste time with unnecessary questions. Simply nods and steps outside to the curb, his whistle cutting through the pre-dawn silence to summon a cab from the nearby rank. As one pulls up, he helps Amara with her luggage. "I hope everything turns out okay," he says, genuine concern in his voice. "Thank you, Eugene." Amara slips him a $20 bill, an unnecessary gesture for doing his job, but a habit instilled by her mother. "Always acknowledge those who help you along the way," Josephine would say. "Everyone deserves to be seen." The taxi driver is taciturn, which suits Amara fine. As they navigate the empty streets of pre-dawn Chicago, she makes more calls to her department chief at the hospital, explaining her emergency leave, to her administrative assistant, rescheduling the coming week's appointments, to her neighbor asking her to water the plants and collect mail. Each call is brief, focused, the surgeon in her taking over, compartmentalizing, prioritizing. Between calls, her mind races ahead to San Francisco, to her mother's bedside. Josephine Williams had been the picture of health at her recent physical blood pressure slightly elevated, but controlled with medication, cholesterol within normal ranges, physically active with her twice-weekly water aerobics class and daily 3-mile walks. What had changed? Was there a warning sign they'd missed? The doctor in Amara reviews possibilities while the daughter in her tries not to imagine the worst. The taxi pulls up to the United Airlines departure terminal at 5:43 a.m. O'Hare is already stirring to life, the early morning flights bringing a steady stream of travelers through its doors. Amara pays the driver, collects her receipt out of ingrained habit, and enters the terminal, immediately scanning for the shortest check-in line. As she waits, she texts Daniel, "At airport. Secured flight UA 1042, landing SFO 9:32 a.m. your time. Updates." His response comes quickly. "Mom stable. Responding to verbal commands, left side weakness, neurologist cautiously optimistic." Amara exhales a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Responding to verbal commands is good, it means higher brain functions are intact. Left side weakness indicates a right hemispheric stroke, likely in the motor cortex. The neurologist's cautious optimism suggests the clot-busting drugs are working. All of this flashes through her mind in the clinical language of her profession, a temporary shield against the emotional reality. The check-in process passes in a blur. The agent, noting Amara's medical credentials and the nature of her emergency, waives the exorbitant fee for her checked bag and arranges for priority boarding. Another small kindness in a morning that desperately needs them. Security is mercifully quick at this early hour. As Amara collects her belongings from the plastic bin after the scanner, her phone buzzes with another text from Daniel. "She spoke, asked for you." 2 sentences that send relief flooding through her so powerfully that she has to step aside, leaning against a nearby pillar for support. Speech. One of the first functions often lost in a stroke, and one of the most important to recover quickly. If Josephine is speaking already, it's a very good sign indeed. Coming as fast as I can, she texts back. Tell her I love her. 90 minutes later, Amara strides through O'Hare International Airport, rolling suitcase clicking rhythmically behind her. Despite the early hour, the terminal buzzes with activity business travelers in wrinkled suits, families corralling sleepy children, airline staff beginning another long day of managed chaos. Amara navigates through the crowd with practiced ease, her mind simultaneously tracking gate numbers and reviewing what she knows about her mother's condition. Josephine Williams, 73 years old, hypertension controlled with medication, no previous strokes or TIAs. The information cycles through her mind, the doctor in her attempting to predict outcomes, treatment options, rehabilitation requirements. The daughter in her tries not to picture her vibrant, opinionated mother rendered silent, immobile, changed. At the security checkpoint, Amara joins the line, her attention split between the procedural requirements and the clock. Every minute counts with stroke patients. She knows this better than most. The line inches forward, travelers shuffling ahead in the mindless dance of modern air travel. Behind her, a conversation drifts into her awareness. Can you believe they're charging for checked bags now? Highway robbery. The voice belongs to an older white man in a golf shirt addressing his wife. Well, what choice do we have? His wife responds with a sigh. At least we're in first class on the way back. I can't handle being crammed in coach for 5 hours again. My circulation isn't what it used to be. Amara tunes them out, focusing instead on her breathing. The anxiety threatens to bubble up again, not just about her mother, but about the flight itself. It's been this way since she was a child. Airports make her tense, airplanes make her claustrophobic, and other passengers often make her feel like an outsider in a dozen subtle ways. As a frequent traveler for medical conferences, she's developed coping mechanisms, but today those mechanisms are already strained by the emergency pulling her across the country. Her phone buzzes with a text from Daniel. Mom's stable. Asking for you. Doctor says good signs of responsiveness. Relief washes through her, followed immediately by renewed urgency. She needs to be there, not just as a doctor who understands the medical terminology and treatment protocols, but as a daughter whose presence alone might help in ways science can't fully explain. Amara reaches her gate 30 minutes before boarding is scheduled to begin. The waiting area is already half full, passengers scattered across the rows of uncomfortable seating, many hunched over phones or laptops. She finds an empty seat at the edge of the gate area and takes out her tablet, logging into the hospital's remote system to check on her patients one last time before going off-grid for the 5-hour flight. There's Jamie Sanchez, 8 years old, recovering from surgery to remove a benign tumor 3 days ago. His latest scans look good, inflammation already receding. Next is Lily Chen, 14, scheduled for a procedure next week to repair a vascular malformation. Amara makes a note for her colleague who will be taking over the case. Then there's Marcus Reynolds, just 6, whose brain cancer has stubbornly resisted treatment. Amara feels the familiar ache as she reviews his file. Some cases leave deeper marks than others, and Marcus, with his gap-toothed smile and Batman pajamas, is one of them. Now boarding United Airlines Flight 1042 to San Francisco, we'd like to invite our Premier 1K members, active military personnel, and passengers requiring special assistance to board at this time. Amara looks up from her tablet, surprised at how quickly the time has passed. She gathers her belongings, joining the small line of priority boarders. As she waits, she sends a final text to Daniel. Boarding now. Will be unreachable until landing. Give Mom my love. His response comes seconds later. Safe flight. She's waiting for you. 3 simple words that carry immense weight. Her mother is waiting, conscious, aware, alive. When Amara finally boards the plane, she's among the last group called. Her seat 14A window provides a small mercy of privacy, a corner where she can press her forehead against the cool plexiglass and process the whirlwind of the morning. She stows her carry-on in the overhead bin, keeping her medical bag under the seat in front of her out of habit, though she's not traveling in a professional capacity today. The middle seat beside her remains empty as passengers continue to board, and Amara allows herself to hope it might stay that way. A small comfort on a day desperately in need of comforts. She closes her eyes, mentally reviewing the fastest route from SFO to San Francisco General, calculating how long it will take to reach her mother's bedside. The universe, however, has other plans for flight UA1042 to San Francisco. Excuse me, that's our row. Amara opens her eyes to see a blonde woman in her mid-30s, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, standing in the aisle with a fidgeting toddler on her hip. Behind her, a man in an expensive-looking suit taps impatiently at his phone, seemingly oblivious to the boarding process holding him up. 14B and C? Amara asks, preparing to stand and let them access their seats. The woman frowns, looking at their boarding passes. No, we're A and B window and middle. Amara blinks, momentarily confused. I'm sorry, there must be a mistake. My boarding pass says 14A. She reaches for her ticket in the seat pocket, presenting it as evidence. The woman barely glances at it before shaking her head. Well, there's been a change. My son needs the window seat. He gets anxious during takeoff if he can't see outside. And that's when it begins, the confrontation that will soon escalate beyond anything Amara could have anticipated, captured on at least 3 passengers' phones and eventually viewed by millions. I don't care what your ticket says. My son needs to sit by the window. Move. Now. We return to the present moment, where flight attendant Gloria stands evaluating the boarding passes, her expression professionally neutral but her eyes taking in every detail of the situation. The cabin has gone quiet, that peculiar hush that falls when spectators anticipate conflict but aren't sure which side to take. Gloria looks up from the boarding passes, first at Amara, then at the mother. Ma'am, she addresses the standing woman, your tickets are for 14B and C, the middle and aisle seats. This passenger is correctly seated in her assigned window seat, 14A, the mother's face flushes. But my son needs, if a specific seat was medically necessary, Gloria continues, her tone firm but not unkind. That arrangement needed to be made with the gate agent before boarding. I can check if there's another window seat available, but I cannot ask another passenger to give up their assigned seat without their consent. The mother's husband finally looks up from his phone. What's the problem, Melissa? This woman won't move so Tyler can have the window, Melissa hisses, loud enough for several rows to hear. And now the flight attendant is taking her side. Gloria's expression doesn't change, but something in her posture shifts subtly. Sir, ma'am, I'm not taking sides. I'm following airline policy. Now, would you like me to check for another window seat, or would you prefer to take your assigned seat so we can continue boarding? The husband sighs, clearly wanting to avoid a scene. Let's just sit down, Mel. It's not worth delaying the whole flight. But Tyler will have a meltdown if he can't see out, Melissa insists, her voice rising. The toddler, sensing his mother's distress, begins to whimper. Amara, who has remained silent throughout this exchange, makes a decision. I understand about children and anxiety, she says quietly. I'm a pediatric surgeon. I'd be happy to switch seats with your son once we reach cruising altitude, but I need the window for takeoff. She doesn't explain that her own anxiety spikes during takeoff, that watching the ground fall away somehow helps her manage it, or that today of all days, she needs whatever small comforts she can find. It would only be for about 20 minutes. The couple's body language tells different stories. The husband, Robert, as Amara will later learn, shows visible relief at this proposed compromise. His shoulders relax and he gives Amara a grateful nod. Melissa, however, stiffens further, her jaw tightening as if Amara's reasonable offer is somehow more offensive than an outright refusal. That's not acceptable, Melissa says, her voice taking on a brittle edge. He needs the window seat for the entire flight. I specifically requested it when I booked our tickets. Gloria intervenes again, her professionalism unwavering but her patience clearly tested. Ma'am, our records show no such request was made for your reservation. Your assigned seats are 14B and C. A middle-aged man in the row behind them clears his throat. Excuse me, but could you folks resolve this? Some of us would like to get settled. His comment draws murmurs of agreement from other nearby passengers. The social pressure seems to register with Robert, whose expression grows increasingly uncomfortable. Melissa, he says in a lowered voice, though in the close quarters of the airplane cabin it's still audible to those nearby. Let's just take our seats, it's not worth making a scene. But Melissa isn't ready to concede. She shifts Tyler higher on her hip, the toddler now watching the proceedings with wide, uncertain eyes. No, Robert. You always do this. You always give in without standing up for what our son needs. The accusation carries weight beyond the immediate situation, suggesting deeper tensions in their relationship. Robert's face tightens, but he says nothing, his gaze dropping back to his phone as if seeking refuge in work rather than engaging in this public disagreement. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments if you've ever witnessed or experienced something like this while traveling. Gloria steps closer, her voice dropping to ensure only those in the immediate vicinity can hear. Ma'am, I understand your concern for your son, but I need to be clear. This passenger has the right to her assigned seat. If you continue to insist otherwise, I'll need to involve the captain, which could result in a delay for everyone. The implied threat of escalation hangs in the air. Delays mean missed connections, disrupted schedules, and potentially even a notation in passenger records. Melissa seems to calculate these factors, her expression cycling through indignation, frustration, and finally, reluctantly, resignation. "Fine," she says, the word clipped and cold. "We'll take our assigned seats." Gloria nods, professional satisfaction in her expression rather than triumph. "Thank you for your cooperation, sir. Ma'am, if you'll please take seats 14B and C, we can continue with boarding." Robert reaches for Tyler. "I'll take him. He can sit on my lap during takeoff." Melissa relinquishes the child with obvious reluctance, then slides into the middle seat beside Amara, her movements stiff with unresolved anger. Robert settles into the aisle seat with Tyler on his knee, immediately producing a tablet from his briefcase and turning it on, presumably to distract the toddler. "The offer still stands," Amara says quietly to Melissa. "Once we're at cruising altitude, if your son would still like the window seat, I'm happy to switch." Melissa doesn't respond verbally, but her sideways glance communicates volumes, suspicion, resentment, and something harder to define. Perhaps shame at having been publicly corrected, or frustration at her thwarted attempt to control the situation. Whatever the mix of emotions, it's clear that the tension in row 14 is far from resolved. Gloria gives Amara a small nod of acknowledgement before continuing down the aisle, attending to other passengers. The normal bustle of boarding resumes around them, the thud of bags being stowed in overhead bins, the rustle of passengers settling into seats, the mechanical whir of the aircraft systems preparing for departure. Amara turns toward the window, ostensibly to watch the ground crew loading the last of the luggage, but also to create a bubble of privacy in the cramped space. She feels Melissa's hostility radiating across the inches that separate them, an almost physical heat of resentment. It's a familiar sensation, the weight of being perceived as difficult, uncooperative, or entitled simply for standing her ground. How many times has she felt this? In medical school, when professors expressed surprise at her academic excellence. In residency, when patients questioned her credentials despite the MD clearly displayed on her white coat. In department meetings, where her suggestions were often overlooked until repeated by male colleagues. The weight of these accumulated moments presses on her now, adding to the stress of her mother's condition and the anxiety of the impending flight. Amara takes her phone from her pocket, checking one last time for messages from Daniel before airplane mode becomes mandatory. There's a new text. "Mom asking about your flight. Told her you're on your way. Neurologist says early intervention was key, looking more optimistic." She types a quick response. "Just boarded. Take off soon. Keep talking to her." "You both?" As she switches her phone to airplane mode, Amara notices Melissa watching her from the corner of her eye. The woman's attention flicks away when their gazes meet, but the moment of observation was unmistakable. Amara tucks her phone into the seat pocket and returns her attention to the window, watching as the last of the luggage is loaded and the ground crew begins to clear the area around the plane. What Amara doesn't know is that Melissa Carson is having one of the worst weeks of her life. 3 days ago, she discovered evidence that her husband Robert might be having an affair with his 26-year-old assistant. Yesterday, Tyler's preschool called with concerns about his developmental progress, suggesting evaluations that insurance might not cover. This morning, she learned her father's cancer has returned, more aggressive than before. The window seat confrontation isn't really about the window seat at all. It's about a woman desperately trying to control something, anything, in a life that suddenly feels like it's spiraling beyond her grasp. And what Melissa doesn't know is that Amara Williams has spent her entire life navigating spaces where she's seen as the one who should accommodate, should move, should adjust, should make room, while simultaneously being the one who holds lives in her skilled hands, who makes split-second decisions that determine whether children live or die, who carries the weight of both exceptional privilege and persistent otherness. As the flight attendants perform their final checks and the cabin door closes with a definitive thunk, these two women sit shoulder to shoulder, each wrapped in private struggles, neither aware of the complex humanity of the stranger beside them. But over the next 5 hours and 27 minutes, that will change in ways neither could possibly anticipate. The plane begins to taxi, and Amara grips the armrests, her knuckles whitening slightly as they pick up speed. Beside her, Tyler has begun to cry, quiet, hiccuping sobs that his father tries unsuccessfully to soothe. "See," Melissa mutters, just loud enough for Amara to hear. This is exactly what I was trying to prevent. Amara hesitates, then makes another decision. Despite everything, she is first and foremost a doctor who has dedicated her life to helping children. She reaches into her medical bag and pulls out a small, colorful kaleidoscope, a tool she sometimes uses to distract nervous young patients before procedures. May I? She asks, directing the question to Robert rather than Melissa. He nods, willing to try anything to calm his son as the plane accelerates down the runway. Hey, Tyler, Amara says softly, holding up the kaleidoscope. Do you want to see something magical? The toddler's sobs pause as curiosity momentarily overrides distress. Amara demonstrates how to look through the eyepiece, then carefully hands it to the child. Every time you turn it, the magic changes. Tyler puts the toy to his eye, gasping in delight as the colored patterns shift and morph. His tears forgotten, he becomes absorbed in the simple wonder of the kaleidoscope just as the plane lifts off the ground. Robert mouths a thank you over his son's head. Melissa says nothing, but some of the rigid tension in her posture eases slightly. As the plane climbs through the clouds, Amara turns to look out the window, allowing herself a moment of reflection. Her mother's strong, proud Josephine Williams lies in a hospital bed on the other side of the country, perhaps unable to speak, perhaps struggling to recognize her own children. The thought sends a wave of grief through Amara so powerful she has to close her eyes against it. Josephine had raised Amara and Daniel alone after their father died of a heart attack when Amara was just 12. A high school English teacher, Josephine worked extra jobs during summers to ensure her children could pursue their dreams. Education is the one thing they can never take from you, she would say, grading papers late into the night at their kitchen table. When Amara expressed interest in medicine, Josephine sold their modest house and moved them to a smaller apartment to help cover college expenses. Your hands were meant to heal, Josephine had told her daughter. Don't let anything or anyone stand in your way. Now those hands feel helpless, 30,000 feet in the air, hours away from where they need to be. The memory of her father is less distinct now, softened by the years since his passing. Michael Williams had been a civil engineer, quiet and methodical in his work, but exuberant in his family life. He was the one who taught Amara to swim, to ride a bike, to change a tire, practical skills delivered with patience and encouragement. You can learn anything if you break it down into small enough steps, he would tell her. That philosophy had served her well through the grueling years of medical training. His death had come without warning, a massive heart attack while jogging in the park on a crisp autumn morning. One moment a healthy, active 45-year-old man, the next gone. It was Amara who found him when he didn't return from his run, her 12-year-old self biking frantically through the park paths until she spotted the small crowd gathered around a fallen figure. The memory still visits her sometimes in dreams, the stillness of his face, the futile CPR being performed by a stranger, the terrible knowledge that washed over her even before the paramedics confirmed what she already knew. That day changed everything. Josephine, devastated but determined, had gathered her children close that night and made them a promise. We will survive this, together. Your father would want us to keep going to make him proud. And they had. Through grief, through financial struggles, through the countless adjustments of life without him, the three of them had formed a unit so tight that even now, with Amara and Daniel in their 40s, their first instinct in any crisis is to turn toward each other, toward home. The seatbelt sign dings off, and the pilot's voice comes through the cabin, welcoming passengers and announcing a flight time of 5 hours and 15 minutes with clear conditions expected all the way to San Francisco. The normalcy of the announcement feels surreal against the emergency pulling at Amara's heart. Beside her, Tyler continues to play with the kaleidoscope, his earlier distress completely forgotten. Robert has taken out a laptop and begins reviewing documents with the intensity of someone trying very hard to appear busy. Melissa stares straight ahead, her face a mask of contained emotions. Gloria passes through the cabin, checking that seatbelts remain fastened despite the sign being off, a standard precaution against unexpected turbulence. When she reaches row 14, she pauses, her eyes meeting Amara's. Everything all right here? She asks, her gaze taking in the now content toddler with his kaleidoscope. We're fine, thank you, Amara responds with a small smile. Gloria nods, something like approval flickering across her features before she continues down the aisle. What none of them realize is that Gloria Barnes has her own connection to this unfolding story. 27 years as a flight attendant have given her a sixth sense for passenger dynamics, but her interest in this particular situation goes deeper than professional responsibility. Just last month, her niece, a young black attorney, was asked to move from her first-class seat by a flight attendant who assumed she couldn't possibly belong there. The incident resulted in a formal complaint and a half-hearted apology from the airline, but the humiliation lingered. When Gloria saw Melissa demanding Amara's seat, despite clear evidence of assignment, something in her snapped. Gloria's career spans the evolution of air travel from a luxury experience to the often dehumanizing process it has become. She's witnessed the shrinking seats, the disappearing amenities, the increasing tensions as passengers are crammed into ever-tighter spaces with fewer comforts. Through it all, she's maintained a commitment to treating every traveler with dignity, a commitment increasingly tested by the industry's focus on efficiency over humanity. Her niece Tasha's experience had been the final straw. 28 years old, Harvard Law degree, junior partner at a prestigious firm, none of it mattered when a white flight attendant took one look at her and assumed she must be in the wrong seat. "I'm going to need to see your boarding pass again," the attendant had said loudly, despite having already scanned it at the door. The implied accusation was clear: you don't belong here. The memory of Tasha's tearful phone call that evening still makes Gloria's blood boil. So when she spotted the confrontation in row 14, the entitled white woman demanding the seat from a composed black woman clearly trying to avoid conflict, Gloria felt a responsibility that went beyond airline policy. This was about fundamental dignity, about who is expected to accommodate and who is allowed to hold their ground. Her decision to intervene wasn't just professional, it was personal. 30 minutes into the flight, the drink service begins. Gloria reaches row 14 with her cart, offering beverages with professional courtesy. "What can I get for you folks today?" Robert requests coffee, Melissa a sparkling water. When Gloria turns to Amara, there's a subtle softening in her expression. "And for you, ma'am?" "Just water, please," Amara responds. "And maybe an extra cup of apple juice for the little one?" She gestures toward Tyler, who remains fascinated by the kaleidoscope. Gloria smiles, a genuine warmth breaking through her professional veneer. "Of course." As she hands Amara her water, she leans slightly closer and speaks in a lowered voice. "If you need anything at all during this flight, please don't hesitate to let me know." The comment could be interpreted as standard customer service, but the emphasis tells Amara that Gloria is offering more than routine assistance. It's a small gesture of solidarity, an acknowledgement of the earlier confrontation, and an assurance of support. As Gloria moves on to the next row, Melissa shifts in her seat, her body language suggesting she noticed the exchange and its undertones. The cabin falls into the rhythm of a long flight, the white noise of the engines, the occasional ding of call buttons, the rustle of passengers settling in for the journey. Amara takes out her tablet, opening a medical journal article on recent advances in stroke treatment. Knowledge is control, and right now, understanding everything possible about her mother's condition feels like the only action available to her. The article details promising results from a new rehabilitation protocol combining traditional physical therapy with virtual reality simulations. Patients using the system showed significantly faster recovery of fine motor skills compared to control groups. Amara makes a mental note to ask her mother's neurologist about it. San Francisco General is a teaching hospital affiliated with UCSF, and they might have access to experimental treatments or clinical trials. As she reads, Amara's mind drifts to memories of her mother's hands, strong, capable hands that braided her hair every morning until she was old enough to do it herself, that graded thousands of student essays over decades of teaching, that tenderly cared for Michael during the bout of pneumonia that had weakened him just months before his fatal heart attack. Josephine's hands always smelled faintly of the cocoa butter lotion she religiously applied, a scent Amara still associates with comfort and home. Will those hands be weakened now? Will they tremble when trying to hold a pen or button a cardigan? Will her mother, proud, independent Josephine, need help with the basic tasks of daily living? The thought sends another wave of grief through Amara, followed immediately by determination. Whatever rehabilitation is needed, whatever support is required, she and Daniel will ensure their mother receives the best care possible. They owe her nothing less. Beside her, Tyler has fallen asleep against his father's arm, the kaleidoscope still clutched in his tiny hand. Robert continues to work, his fingers flying over his keyboard with the focused intensity of someone on deadline. Melissa flips through an in-flight magazine without appearing to actually read it, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. The tenuous piece of row 14 lasts approximately 47 minutes. It begins with turbulence not severe, but enough to cause the captain to illuminate the seatbelt sign and for Gloria to make an announcement asking passengers to return to their seats. Tyler wakes with a start at a particularly sharp bump, his face immediately crumpling as he registers his unfamiliar surroundings. "Mommy," he wails, reaching for Melissa across the middle seat. Melissa takes him onto her lap, trying to soothe him as the plane continues to bounce through rough air. "It's okay, sweetie. Just some bumps like a car on a bumpy road." But Tyler is inconsolable, his earlier calm forgotten. He twists in his mother's arms, trying to see out the window as the plane shudders through another patch of turbulence. "Window, want to see?" he cries, reaching toward Amara's side of the row. Melissa attempts to distract him, but the toddler's distress escalates. Passengers in nearby rows begin to glance over, some with sympathy, others with the thinly veiled annoyance of travelers who view children on flights as a personal inconvenience. "See what you've done?" Melissa hisses at Amara, her earlier resentment flaring back to life. "This is exactly why he needed the window seat." Amara, who has been silently reviewing medical literature and trying not to think about what awaits her in San Francisco, looks up in surprise. "I'm sorry." "He's upset because he can't see out the window," Melissa says, her voice rising slightly. "If you had just moved when I asked, he wouldn't be crying now." The accusation is so unexpected and illogical that Amara momentarily struggles to respond. The plane hits another pocket of turbulence and Tyler's cries grow louder. Robert finally looks up from his work. "Mel, that's enough. It's not her fault. He's tired and the turbulence scared him." But Melissa, overwhelmed by her own stresses and seeking somewhere to direct her anxiety, has found a target. "No, Robert, if she had just shown some basic consideration. Ms. Carson." Gloria has appeared beside their row, her voice low but firm. "Is there a problem?" The use of Melissa's name, which Gloria knows from the boarding passes, serves as a pointed reminder that this interaction is being noted. "My son is upset," Melissa says, modulating her tone but unable to completely hide her frustration. "He needs to see out the window." Gloria's gaze shifts to the still crying Tyler, then to Amara, who sits tensely by the window, her medical journal forgotten. "Dr. Williams," Gloria says, also using Amara's name and title deliberately, "would you be comfortable allowing the child to look out the window until the turbulence passes? Only if that works for you, of course." The formality of Dr. Williams isn't lost on anyone in the row. Amara nods immediately. "Of course." She moves as far against the window as possible, making space. "He's welcome to look out." Melissa hesitates, her pride warring with her desire to calm her son. Finally, she shifts Tyler toward the window. The boy's sobs immediately begin to subside as he presses his face against the plexiglass, watching the clouds rush past. "Thank you," Gloria says to Amara, the two words carrying multiple meanings. To Melissa, she adds, "The turbulence should pass shortly. Please ensure both you and your son keep your seatbelts fastened." As Gloria moves away, the tension in row 14 remains thick enough to cut with a knife. Tyler, now calmed by the view outside, points excitedly at cloud formations, his earlier distress forgotten with the resilience of the very young. "Cloud, Mommy, big cloud." Melissa murmurs acknowledgement, but her attention is on Amara. "So you're a doctor," she says, somewhere between a statement and a challenge. Amara meets her gaze evenly. "Yes, pediatric neurosurgery." Something flickers across Melissa's face, surprise, perhaps, or reluctant reassessment. "You work with children." "Every day," Amara confirms simply. For a moment, it seems this might be an opening, a chance for understanding to bridge the gulf between them. But then Robert's phone chimes with an incoming text, a sound that should be impossible at 30,000 feet unless he's paying for in-flight Wi-Fi. Melissa's attention immediately shifts. "Who's texting you?" Robert's expression closes. "Just work. Jenkins needs the proposal by end of day." "Jenkins texts you directly now?" Melissa's voice carries a dangerous edge. "Melissa, not here." Robert's warning is clear. Amara pretends absorption in her medical journal, acutely uncomfortable at being trapped beside what is clearly a marital discord in progress. Out the window, the clouds have thinned, revealing patchwork farmland far below. Tyler continues to press his face against the glass, seemingly oblivious to the adult tensions surrounding him. Robert and Melissa's marriage had once been solid, 8 years of partnership built on shared ambitions and genuine affection. Robert Carson, rising star at a corporate law firm, had met Melissa Turner, marketing executive for a luxury retail brand, at a charity gala 6 years earlier. Their courtship had been swift and certain. Within a year, they were married in a lavish ceremony featured in Chicago Social magazine. The first cracks appeared after Tyler's birth 3 years ago. Melissa, who had planned to return to work after a brief maternity leave, found herself unexpectedly reluctant to leave her son with a nanny. The pull of motherhood surprised her. She, who had always defined herself through career accomplishments, now found greater fulfillment in Tyler's first smile than in exceeding quarterly targets. Robert supported her decision to extend her leave, then to resign from her position to be a full-time mother. But as months passed, subtle resentments grew. Robert's career accelerated, requiring longer hours and frequent travel. Melissa, isolated in their luxury condo with only Tyler for company most days, began to feel invisible. When she voiced her loneliness, Robert suggested she hire help, join mommy groups, find hobbies, practical solutions that missed the emotional core of her discontent. The distance between them widened gradually, then rapidly after Robert hired a new assistant 6 months ago. Kristen Reynolds was 26, Princeton-educated, relentlessly efficient, and undeniably attractive. Robert insisted their relationship was strictly professional, but Melissa noticed the changes: his increased attention to his appearance, the later nights at the office, the protective way he guarded his phone. 3 days ago, while Robert showered, an email notification had appeared on his unlocked iPad. From Kristen with the subject line, "About last night." Melissa hadn't been able to resist opening it. The content wasn't explicitly incriminating. "I really enjoyed our conversation at dinner. It's rare to find someone who truly understands the pressures we're under. Let's do it again soon." But the intimacy between the lines was unmistakable. When confronted, Robert had dismissed her concerns as paranoid. "It was a work dinner with the whole team. You're reading things that aren't there." But his defensiveness, his refusal to let her see his text exchanges with Kristen, only deepened her suspicions. This trip to San Francisco was supposed to be a family reset 4 days away from Chicago, from work pressures, from the mounting tensions at home. Robert had promised to leave his laptop behind, to focus entirely on rebuilding their connection. Yet here he was, less than an hour into the flight, already immersed in work, already exchanging messages with the office with her. The seatbelt sign dings off again as the plane emerges from the turbulence into smoother air. Gloria's voice comes over the intercom, announcing that the captain has turned off the seatbelt sign and passengers are free to move about the cabin, though it's recommended to keep seatbelts fastened when seated. As if on cue, Robert unbuckles his seatbelt and stands. "I need to use the restroom," he announces, not meeting his wife's suspicious gaze. After he leaves, Melissa sits in rigid silence, her body language screaming discomfort. Tyler, still captivated by the view, begins to squirm, his small body half across Melissa and half leaning toward Amara's window. Amara, sensing the child's awkward position, makes a decision. "Would Tyler be more comfortable in this seat for a while?" she offers quietly. "I could use a stretch anyway." The offer hangs between them. Melissa's instinct is clearly to refuse, to reject any kindness from this woman she's already cast as an adversary. But Tyler's squirming increases and practicality wins out. "That would help," she concedes, the words seemingly difficult to form. Amara unfastens her seatbelt and stands, allowing Melissa to shift Tyler into the window seat. The boy immediately presses his face against the glass again, delighted by his improved view. "Thank you," Melissa says stiffly, not quite meeting Amara's eyes. "You're welcome." Amara steps into the aisle, stretching subtly after being confined to the seat. "I'll take a quick walk and come back in a few minutes." As Amara makes her way toward the back of the plane, she passes Robert returning from the restroom. Their eyes meet briefly, his expression unreadable before he continues back to his seat. Amara continues toward the rear galley, where she finds Gloria organizing drink supplies. "Dr. Williams," Gloria acknowledges her with a small smile. "How are you holding up?" "I've been in tougher situations," Amara responds with a wry smile, then more seriously. "Thank you for earlier." Gloria's eyes reflect understanding. "No thanks necessary, your seat assignment was clear." "Still, I appreciate it." Amara hesitates, then adds, "I let the little boy take my window seat for a while. He seems genuinely fascinated by the clouds." "That was kind of you," Gloria observes, "especially considering how his mother behaved." Amara shrugs slightly. "Children shouldn't suffer for their parents' actions." "Is that the doctor speaking or just basic human decency?" "Maybe both." Amara leans against the galley counter, suddenly feeling the weight of the morning's emotions. "Actually, I'm traveling because my mother had a stroke early this morning. I'm trying to get to San Francisco as quickly as possible." Gloria's professional composure softens. I'm so sorry. That must be incredibly stressful. It is, but the hospital says she's stable. My brother is with her. Amara doesn't add that every minute on this plane feels like an eternity, that the fear for her mother sits like a stone in her chest, that the confrontation over a window seat seems simultaneously trivial, and yet another burden to bear on an already impossible day. Is there anything I can do to make the flight easier for you? Gloria asks. Amara shakes her head. Just getting there is all that matters now. Gloria nods in understanding. We're making good time. Tailwinds are in our favor today. Small mercies, Amara says with a faint smile. Gloria begins preparing the beverage cart for a second service pass, her movements efficient from years of practice. I have a mother in her 70s too, she offers. Lives in Oakland. I try to visit whenever I have layovers in the Bay Area. Is she in good health? Amara asks. Mostly. Arthritis gives her trouble, especially in the damp seasons. But she's still independent, still driving, still volunteering at her church 3 days a week. Gloria's pride in her mother is evident in her voice. Strongest woman I know. Mine too, Amara says softly. She raised us alone after my father died, worked multiple jobs to put us through college, never complained, never asked for help, just did what needed doing. Gloria nods in recognition of a familiar story. My father passed when I was in high school. Mom worked as a hospital administrator during the day and cleaned offices at night, put all 4 of us through school. The shared experience creates an unexpected connection between them. Amara feels some of the day's tension easing, replaced by the comfort of recognition. There's something powerful in these moments of unexpected understanding, these bridges built between strangers through common ground. Your mother raised you right, Gloria observes. I've been flying for 27 years. You develop a sense for people. The ones who see airline staff as servants versus the ones who see us as professionals doing our jobs. The ones who believe their convenience trumps everyone else's versus those who understand we're all just trying to get somewhere. Amara smiles. My mother would say that character reveals itself in how you treat people who can't do anything for you. Smart woman, Gloria says approvingly. I hope she recovers quickly and completely. Thank you. Amara pushes herself away from the counter. I should head back and check on my seat borrower. As Amara returns to her seat, she finds the row's dynamic shifted. Tyler remains happily at the window, but Robert and Melissa are engaged in a tense, whispered argument that immediately ceases when they notice Amara's return. He's really enjoying the view, Amara observes, nodding toward Tyler, who waves excitedly at a distant airplane visible far below. Yes, thank you, Robert responds while Melissa remains silent. You didn't have to give up your seat. It's no problem, Amara assures him, taking the aisle seat that Robert had previously occupied. I needed to stretch my legs anyway. The new seating arrangement, Tyler at the window, Melissa in the middle, Amara now on the aisle, and Robert across the aisle creates a different dynamic. Without the immediate friction of the window seat dispute, a tentative calm settles over row 14. This calm allows Amara to return to her medical journal, though the words blur occasionally as her thoughts drift to her mother. Meanwhile, Robert continues his work, typing with increasing intensity as some deadline apparently approaches. Melissa alternates between attending to Tyler and casting suspicious glances at her husband's screen, which he subtly angles away from her view. An hour passes this way, the flight progressing without incident until the lunch service begins. Gloria wheels her cart down the aisle, distributing meal options with efficiency. When she reaches row 14, she offers the standard choice between chicken pasta and a vegetarian option. Robert and Melissa both select the pasta. When Gloria turns to Amara, her tone warms slightly. Dr. Williams, would you prefer the pasta or the vegetable curry? The continued use of Dr. Williams doesn't go unnoticed by Melissa, whose expression tightens almost imperceptibly. The curry sounds good, thank you, Amara responds. As Gloria places the meal on Amara's tray table, she adds in a lower voice, I've put something special in for dessert. A little extra chocolate never hurts on difficult days. It's a small gesture of kindness, but one that touches Amara unexpectedly. Thank you, Gloria. After Gloria moves on to the next row, Melissa turns slightly toward Amara, curiosity apparently overcoming hostility. Do you know her from somewhere? Amara shakes her head. No, we've never met before today. She seems very attentive to you, Melissa observes, her tone suggesting she's trying to puzzle something out. Amara considers her response carefully. I think she's just being kind. I mentioned that I'm traveling because my mother had a stroke this morning. The information lands between them, changing the atmosphere. Melissa's expression shifts, surprise, and then something like embarrassment crossing her features. I'm sorry to hear that, she says after a moment. Is it serious? Yes, Amara answers simply. That's why I needed to get on this flight. The hospital says she's stable, but with strokes, time is crucial. Every hour matters for recovery potential. Robert, who has been listening while unwrapping his meal, joins the conversation. That must be incredibly stressful. Is someone with her now? My brother Daniel. He lives in Oakland, so he got to the hospital quickly. Amara unwraps her own meal, though she has little appetite. Our mother raised us alone after our father died. She's everything to us. The personal disclosure creates a subtle shift in the Rose dynamic. Suddenly, Amara is no longer just an obstacle to a window seat, but a person with her own urgent crisis, her own loves and fears and priorities. I hope she recovers quickly, Robert offers, his tone genuine. Melissa remains quiet, her expression troubled as she helps Tyler with his child's meal. The toddler, sensing the changed mood, looks between the adults with curious eyes. Lady sad? He asks suddenly, pointing at Amara with a small, sauce-covered finger. Tyler, don't point, Melissa corrects automatically. Then more gently, yes, the lady is a little sad because her mommy is sick. Tyler considers this with the solemn wisdom sometimes found in very young children. He reaches across his mother to pat Amara's arm with his sticky hand. My mommy kiss boo-boos, he informs her seriously. Make better. The simple childish comfort offered without judgment or reservation brings unexpected tears to Amara's eyes. Thank you, Tyler, she manages, touched by the innocent gesture. Melissa watches this interaction, something in her expression softening. For the first time since boarding, the tension between the two women noticeably eases. Before you see how this ends, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell to never miss our newest stories. As lunch concludes and the flight continues westward, the conversation in row 14 gradually becomes more normal, even occasionally verging on friendly. Tyler, full of chicken pasta and pudding, grows sleepy again. He insists on keeping his spot by the window but leans against his mother's arm, his eyelids growing heavy. He'll be out for at least an hour, Melissa predicts, adjusting his small pillow. Food comas are the only reliable way to get him to nap these days. How old is he? Amara asks. Just turned 3 last month, already thinks he runs the world. Developmental appropriate, Amara notes with a smile. 3 is when they really start asserting independence. Melissa glances at her. Right, you work with children. Every day, though my patients are usually dealing with more than typical developmental stages. Amara doesn't elaborate on the often heartbreaking cases that come to a pediatric neurosurgeon, the brain tumors, the traumatic injuries, the congenital malformations that threaten young lives. It must be difficult, Melissa says after a moment. Emotionally, I mean. It can be, Amara acknowledges. But the successes make it worthwhile. Seeing a child recover, watching them return to normal life, there's nothing like it. As Tyler drifts into sleep, his breathing deep, and even Melissa seems to come to a decision. I should apologize, she says, her voice low enough not to disturb her son. For earlier, I was out of line. The apology, unexpected and clearly difficult for Melissa to offer, hangs between them. Amara considers her response carefully. Thank you for saying that, she says finally. It's been a stressful day for everyone, I think. Melissa gives a short, humorless laugh. You have no idea. Try me, Amara suggests gently. Perhaps it's the altitude, the strange intimacy of being strangers pressed shoulder to shoulder for hours, or simply the human need to unburden. Whatever the reason, Melissa begins to talk. In halting sentences at first, then with increasing flow, she shares the cascading crises of her week. Her suspicions about her husband's fidelity, her son's potential developmental issues, her father's recurring cancer. So the window seat thing was. Melissa trails off, shaking her head. The final straw, Amara supplies, the one thing you thought you could control. Something like that, Melissa admits, still doesn't excuse how I behaved. Across the aisle, Robert pretends absorption in his laptop, but the slight tension in his shoulders suggests he's hearing more than he acknowledges. We all have moments we're not proud of, Amara says, especially under stress. Some more than others, Melissa responds with a sidelong glance at her husband. The conversation pauses as Gloria passes through the cabin, collecting trash from lunch service. She notices the sleeping Tyler and the noticeably warmer interaction between Amara and Melissa. Everything going all right here? She asks, her gaze taking in the changed dynamic. Much better, thank you, Amara confirms with a small smile. Gloria nods approvingly before continuing down the aisle. As the flight progresses past its midpoint, something unexpected happens in row 14. The artificial environment of the airplane, the shared space, the forced proximity, The hours of confinement creates a peculiar intimacy that allows for honesty rarely found between strangers. Melissa speaks of her fears for her marriage, her anxiety about Tyler's development, her terror of losing her father. Amara shares stories of her mother's strength, her own journey through medical school as one of few black women in her class, her commitment to young patients who trust her with their futures. Even Robert eventually closes his laptop and joins the conversation, though he carefully steers away from any mention of his assistant or the suspicious texts. Instead, he talks about the pressure of his corporate law practice, the 80-hour weeks, the constant struggle to balance career ambitions with family needs. "I'm missing too much," he admits, watching his sleeping son. "By the time I realize what's important, it might be too late." The statement hangs in the air, loaded with implications that extend beyond missing childhood milestones. As they speak, the landscape below changes, the patchwork farmland giving way to the rugged terrain of the Rocky Mountains, their peaks snow-capped even in summer, their valleys deep and shadowed. Tyler wakes briefly, fascinated by the dramatic scenery, then drifts back to sleep, secure in his mother's arms. Amara shares more about her mother Josephine's passion for literature, her decades of inspiring students in under-resourced Chicago public schools, her fierce determination to give her children every opportunity she herself had been denied growing up in 1950s South Side Chicago. "She was the first in her family to go to college," Amara explains. "Her parents, my grandparents, had moved north from Mississippi during the Great Migration. They worked factory jobs, saved every penny. When my mother earned a scholarship to Northwestern, it was like the culmination of generations of hope." Melissa listens, genuinely engaged. "And she became a teacher. English literature, taught at the same high school for 40 years. Former students still contact her, telling her how she changed their lives, how she was the first person who ever made them feel their voices mattered." Amara's pride in her mother is evident. "After my father died, she could have fallen apart. No one would have blamed her. Instead, she showed us what resilience looks like. Worked days, took night classes to get her master's degree, still made it to every school event, every doctor's appointment, every milestone." "She sounds remarkable," Robert comments. "She is," Amara's voice catches slightly. "That's why I need to get to her now. She's given everything for us. It's our turn to be there for her." The conversation shifts to Tyler, whose developmental concerns weigh heavily on Melissa. His preschool teacher says his language skills are behind where they should be, and he has trouble with transitions, gets fixated on certain activities. "She suggested we have him evaluated, but our insurance." She trails off, the financial implications clear. Amara considers carefully before responding. As a medical professional, she's cautious about offering unofficial assessments, but she's also spent her career working with children and recognizes genuine parental concern. "There's an enormous range of what's normal in child development," she says, "and early intervention, if needed, can make a tremendous difference. I could recommend some resources in Chicago, specialists who work on sliding scales, support groups for parents. It might help to have more information." The offer is professional but also personal, a bridge extended between two women who began the flight as adversaries. Melissa's eyes fill with unexpected tears. That would be incredibly helpful. Thank you." Tyler stirs in his sleep, murmuring something unintelligible before settling again. Melissa strokes his hair gently, maternal love evident in every touch. Robert watches this exchange with a complex expression, regret perhaps for his emotional absence in the face of his family's struggles, or recognition of connections he himself has failed to nurture. "I could help with specialists too," he offers, surprising both women. "The firm has connections with some of the best pediatric developmental specialists in the Midwest. I should have looked into it already." The admission seems to cost him something, an acknowledgement of his own shortcomings as a father and husband. Melissa meets his gaze directly for perhaps the first time during the flight. "Yes, you should have," she agrees, but without the bitter edge that might have colored such a statement earlier. But it's not too late to start. Something passes between them, not forgiveness, exactly, but perhaps the possibility of it, the suggestion that their damaged relationship might not be beyond repair. Amara witnesses this moment with the unique perspective of a stranger who has somehow become a temporary confidant to them both. In her years as a surgeon, she's often been present for families' most vulnerable moments. The terrifying vigils outside operating rooms, the breathless wait for test results, the impossible decisions that must sometimes be made. She's learned to recognize the complex currents of love, fear, resentment, and hope that flow through family units in crisis. The Carsons are in crisis, though of a different kind than her own urgent journey to her mother's bedside. Their crisis has built slowly, erosion rather than earthquake, but no less devastating for its gradual progression. "You know," Amara says after a moment, "my mother always tells her students that the most powerful moment in any story isn't the climax, it's the turning point. The moment when the protagonist decides to change direction, to try something different, to face what they've been avoiding." Both Robert and Melissa look at her, absorbing her words. "Maybe this trip could be that for you," she suggests gently. "A turning point." The possibility hangs in the air between them, neither accepted nor rejected, simply acknowledged as they continue westward at 500 miles per hour, strangers who have somehow stumbled into unexpected intimacy at 30,000 feet. As the plane begins its initial descent toward San Francisco, a subtle shift occurs in the cabin, passengers straightening seats, stowing items, preparing for landing. The captain's voice comes over the intercom, announcing their approach to SFO, the local time, 11:47 a.m., and the weather conditions, a pleasant 68 degrees with partial cloud cover. The normalcy of these announcements feels surreal against the emotional journeys that have unfolded in row 14. Tyler wakes as the plane begins to drop altitude, the change in pressure causing his ears to pop. He whimpers in discomfort until Melissa shows him how to yawn to equalize the pressure. Once again alert, he presses against the window, watching in fascination as the California coastline comes into view. "Look, Mommy, water!" he exclaims, pointing excitedly. "That's the Pacific Ocean," Melissa tells him, "and soon we'll see the Golden Gate Bridge." Tyler bounces with excitement, all traces of his earlier distress gone. Bridge, red bridge. As San Francisco comes into view, Amara feels a strange mix of emotions, urgency to reach her mother, gratitude for the unexpected connections formed during the flight, and a lingering awareness that once they land, these temporary relationships will likely dissolve as quickly as they formed. Gloria makes a final pass through the cabin, ensuring seatbelts are fastened and tray tables stowed for landing. When she reaches row 14, she pauses. "Dr. Williams, I've arranged for you to deplane first after we land," she says, "given your family emergency." The consideration brings a rush of gratitude to Amara. "Thank you, Gloria, that's incredibly kind." Melissa, who earlier might have resented such special treatment, now nods in agreement. "That's good. You need to get to the hospital as quickly as possible." The plane descends toward SFO, the city spread out below like a miniature model, buildings and streets and parks rendered in perfect detail, but impossibly small. Tyler narrates everything he sees with the enthusiasm only a 3-year-old can muster, his excitement infectious enough to momentarily lighten the mood in row 14. As the wheels touch down with a gentle bump, Amara feels the familiar rush of relief that accompanies every successful landing, quickly followed by renewed urgency. Her mother is just miles away now, waiting in a hospital bed, perhaps unable to speak, perhaps unable to recognize her own daughter. True to Gloria's word, once the plane reaches the gate and the seatbelt sign dings off for the final time, she appears at row 14. "Dr. Williams, if you're ready." Amara gathers her medical bag and stands. She turns to Melissa, Robert, and Tyler, this family of strangers with whom she's shared more than just a row of seats. "I hope things improve for all of you," she says sincerely. "Tyler, thank you for sharing the window with me." The toddler beams at her. "Bye, Dr. Lady," Robert nods respectfully. "Good luck with your mother, I hope she recovers quickly." Melissa hesitates, then reaches out to briefly touch Amara's arm. "I'm sorry again about earlier, and thank you for listening." "Take care of each other," Amara responds simply before following Gloria toward the front of the plane. As they walk through the empty first-class cabin, Gloria speaks quietly. "I've called ahead to have a car service waiting for you at curb. The driver will have your name on a sign just outside baggage claim." Amara stops, genuinely surprised by this additional kindness. "Gloria, that's above and beyond, thank you." Gloria shakes her head. "My mother had a stroke 5 years ago. I know what it's like, that race to get to the hospital." She reaches into her pocket and pulls out a business card. "Here's my number. Text me later if you want. Let me know how your mother is doing." Amara takes the card, touched by the unexpected connection. "I will." As Gloria opens the airplane door, she adds, "And for what it's worth, I think you handled that situation with Mrs. Carson beautifully. Not everyone would have been so gracious." "We're all fighting battles others know nothing about," Amara responds. "Even people who don't show their best selves at first." With a final thank you, Amara steps off the plane into the jetway, already mentally plotting the fastest route to San Francisco General, where her mother and brother wait. The airport terminal is crowded with the usual midday rush tourists eager to begin their San Francisco adventures, business travelers moving with practiced efficiency, families navigating the complex choreography of keeping children and luggage together. Amara moves through this human current with single-minded focus, her rolling suitcase trailing behind her, her medical bag clutched to her side. She bypasses baggage claim, everything essential is in her carry-on, and anything else can wait. Outside, the California air hits her with its distinctive quality, cooler than Chicago's summer heat, carrying the faint salt tang of the nearby ocean. A line of taxis and rideshare vehicles waits at the curb, and as promised, a driver holds a sign with Dr. WLLIAMS printed in bold letters. The driver, a middle-aged man with a salt-and-pepper beard, greets her with professional courtesy. "Dr. Williams, I'm Rafik. Gloria called ahead San Francisco General, correct?" "Yes, please, as quickly as possible." "Of course." He takes her suitcase, stowing it efficiently in the trunk of the black Lincoln town car. "I know the fastest route, even at this time of day." As they pull away from the curb, Amara feels the strange disorientation of rapid travel. Just hours ago, she was in her Chicago apartment, and now she's crossing the Bay Bridge toward San Francisco, the city's iconic skyline spread before her. The world has simultaneously expanded and contracted, distance collapsed by modern aviation, yet still frustratingly real as she inches through midday traffic toward her mother. Rafik navigates with the skill of a long-time local, taking side streets and shortcuts that gradually bring them closer to the hospital. Amara's phone buzzes with a text from Daniel. "Where are you?" Mom's asking. "Just landed in car to hospital now, 15 minutes away," she responds, her thumbs flying over the screen. His reply comes immediately. "Room 4217, neurology wing. She's more alert. Recognized me right away." Another wave of relief washes through Amara. Recognition is crucial. It means higher cognitive functions are intact, that the stroke likely hasn't affected memory centers. Rafik glances at her in the rearview mirror. "Family emergency?" "My mother had a stroke early this morning," Amara explains briefly. He nods in understanding. "I will get you there quickly but safely. My own father had a stroke last year. He has recovered well. I wish the same for your mother." "Thank you." Amara appreciates the simple human connection, this brief moment of empathy from another stranger on this day of unexpected encounters. San Francisco General Hospital comes into view, a sprawling complex of buildings, some historic, some modern, all dedicated to the business of healing. Rafik pulls up to the main entrance, waving away Amara's attempt to pay. "Gloria took care of it," he explains. "She's a good person, that one. I've driven for her passengers before." Amara thanks him sincerely, collects her bags, and enters the hospital with the strange dual perspective of medical professional and anxious family member. She knows these corridors, these smells, these sounds, they're the backdrop of her daily life in Chicago. Yet here, she's not Dr. Williams making rounds. She's Josephine Williams' daughter, carrying the weight of love and fear that she sees in her patients' families every day. The elevator seems agonizingly slow as it ascends to the 4th floor. When the doors finally open, Amara steps out, scanning the signs for directions to room 4217. The neurology wing is to the right, and she moves quickly, her heart pounding with anticipation and dread. Outside room 4217, she pauses, taking a deep breath to compose herself. Through the partially open door, she can hear her brother's voice, the low, gentle tones he reserves for serious moments. "Amara should be here any minute. She caught the first flight out." Then faintly but unmistakably, her mother's voice. "My girl's coming." The sound nearly buckles Amara's knees. Josephine is speaking. Her words are slightly slurred but intelligible, conscious, present. Amara pushes the door open. The hospital room is standard-issue beige walls, vinyl flooring, utilitarian furniture, the ubiquitous equipment of modern medicine blinking and humming around the bed. But Amara sees none of this. She sees only her mother, propped up on pillows, her right side apparently normal, her left noticeably weaker, but her eyes, those sharp, intelligent eyes that have watched over Amara for 42 years, fully alert and filling with tears. "There she is," Josephine says, her words slightly slurred but clear enough. "My daughter." Daniel rises from the chair beside the bed, his face showing the strain of the morning's emergency but relief evident in his smile. "Told you she'd get here fast," he says to their mother, then turns to embrace his sister. "She's doing better than we could have hoped," he whispers in Amara's ear. Amara moves to the bedside, taking her mother's right hand, the one still strong and responsive. "Mom," she says simply, all her medical knowledge, all her professional composure temporarily forgotten in the rush of being simply a daughter. I'm here. Josephine squeezes her hand with surprising strength. Didn't mean to frighten you, baby. Just a little setback. The characteristic understatement brings a laugh that's half sob from Amara. Just a little setback, she agrees, playing along with her mother's lifelong habit of minimizing her own troubles. Nothing we can't handle. And in that moment, surrounded by the institutional blandness of a hospital room but wrapped in the powerful bonds of family, Amara knows it's true. Whatever challenges lie ahead, rehabilitation, recovery, adaptation, they will face them together, just as they've faced every other challenge since that long-ago day when Michael Williams didn't come home from his morning run. What she doesn't yet know is that 3 passengers had recorded portions of the initial confrontation on their phones. By the time her mother is released from the hospital 2 weeks later, with promising signs of recovery and only minor speech difficulties, the video will have gone viral, sparking discussions about privilege, race, airline policies, and human decency in stressful situations. She doesn't know that Melissa and Robert Carson will begin marriage counseling upon their return to Chicago, addressing not just the suspected infidelity, but the deeper communication issues that have gradually eroded their relationship. She doesn't know that Tyler will indeed be diagnosed with mild sensory processing difficulties, but with early intervention, will thrive in ways that allow his natural curiosity and compassion to flourish. She doesn't know that Gloria Barnes will use the incident as a teaching moment in flight attendant training sessions, emphasizing the importance of enforcing policies fairly while recognizing the human elements behind passenger conflicts. Amara certainly doesn't know that 6 months later, when her mother has recovered enough to travel, they will book a flight to visit Daniel in Oakland, and find themselves assigned to a flight where Gloria is the lead flight attendant, creating a reunion that brings the story full circle. For now, Amara Williams sits beside her mother's hospital bed, holding her hand, listening as the neurologist explains the treatment plan, the expected recovery trajectory, the therapy that will begin tomorrow. She is fully present in this moment, her earlier confrontation on the plane already fading in importance against the reality of her mother's condition and the road ahead. Yet something has shifted in her during that 5-hour flight, a reminder that behind every difficult encounter, every seemingly entitled demand, every moment of conflict might lie stories we cannot see, battles we know nothing about. The lesson will stay with her, influencing her interactions with difficult parents of patients, with colleagues under stress, with strangers whose paths cross hers in the complex choreography of human connection. In the days that follow, as Josephine begins the hard work of rehabilitation, Amara thinks occasionally of the Carsons, wondering if they found their turning point, if they're addressing the cracks in their foundation, if little Tyler is getting the support he needs. She thinks of Gloria, whose small kindnesses made such a difference on an impossible day. 2 weeks later, as Amara helps her mother pack for discharge from the hospital, her phone buzzes with a notification from a news app. Viral video shows flight attendant standing up for black passenger against entitled mom. The headline stops her cold. With a sense of unreality, she opens the article to find a grainy cell phone video of herself, Melissa, and Gloria in what is now characterized as a showdown over the window seat. The comments section is already filled with thousands of reactions, some praising Gloria's professionalism, others condemning Melissa as an embodiment of Karen behavior, still others debating airline policies about seat assignments and children's needs. The video has been viewed over 2 million times, with numbers climbing by the minute. Amara sits heavily on the edge of her mother's hospital bed, staring at her phone in disbelief. "What is it, baby?" Josephine asks, her speech clearer now after days of therapy, though still showing the effects of the stroke. "Remember that flight I took to get here? There was a situation with another passenger. Apparently someone recorded it, and now it's all over the internet." Josephine peers at the phone, her natural curiosity undimmed by her medical ordeal. "Well, look at that, my daughter internet famous," she chuckles, then grows more serious. "Does it show what really happened?" "Parts of it," Amara admits. "But not the whole story, not what came after, how we actually talked, how her little boy ended up using my kaleidoscope. It just shows the conflict, not the resolution." "That's usually how these things go," Josephine observes with the wisdom of her 73 years. "People love the drama, not the understanding that comes later. Your father used to say that most conflicts aren't about what they seem to be about on the surface." Amara nods, remembering her father's gentle approach to disagreements, his ability to look beyond immediate tensions to underlying needs. I wish I could tell people what really happened. That Melissa apologized that she was dealing with so much, that her son Tyler is sweet and curious and might need some extra help, that her husband Robert seems like he's trying to figure out how to be a better partner and father. You could, Josephine suggests. These days, everyone has a platform. Amara considers this. She's always kept a low profile online, a professional necessity in her field where patient privacy is paramount. But perhaps this situation calls for a different approach. That evening, after settling her mother in the apartment Daniel has prepared for her recovery period, Amara sits down at her laptop and composes a thoughtful response to the viral video. She doesn't name the Carsons, respecting their privacy, but she speaks to the larger issues at play, the rush to judgment, the complexity behind seemingly simple conflicts, the humanity that connects even strangers in moments of tension. She posts it to her rarely used Twitter account with low expectations. By morning, her response has itself gone viral, shared by thousands who find in her measured, compassionate perspective a refreshing alternative to the outrage that typically dominates social media discourse. Among those who contact her privately is Melissa Carson, who writes, "I was horrified when I saw that video. It shows me at my absolute worst moment without any context. Thank you for telling a more complete story. Robert and I have started counseling. Tyler is being evaluated next week. Your kindness on that flight, despite how I initially treated you, meant more than you know." Gloria calls too, laughing about their unexpected internet fame, but serious about the impact their story is having on discussions of airline policy and passenger interactions. "You know," she tells Amara, "in 27 years of flying, I've seen variations of that scene play out hundreds of times. Usually it ends with resentment all around. What made this different was you, your patience, your empathy, your willingness to see beyond the initial conflict." "I was just trying to get through a difficult day," Amara demurs. "That's exactly it," Gloria responds. "We're all just trying to get through our difficult days. Sometimes we forget that about each other." As Josephine's recovery progresses, faster than the doctors initially predicted, though still with challenges and setbacks, Amara extends her leave from the hospital in Chicago. She works remotely, consulting on complex cases via video conference, while helping her mother through the daily exercises that will eventually restore most of her mobility and speech. 6 months pass. Autumn turns to winter, winter to spring. Josephine, now able to walk with just a slight limp and speaking almost normally, decides she wants to visit Daniel's new house in Oakland. "I've spent enough time in hospitals and therapy rooms," she declares. "I want to see my son's garden he keeps talking about, meet these chickens he's apparently raising now." Amara books the flights, Chicago to San Francisco again, but this time a planned journey rather than an emergency dash. When the confirmation email arrives, she notices something that makes her smile. Their flight attendant is listed as G. Barnes. She sends a quick text to the number on the business card she's kept all these months. "Looks like we'll be on your flight next week. Mom is doing great and excited for the trip." Gloria's response comes within minutes. "Looking forward to seeing you both. I'll save the good snacks." On the day of the flight, Amara and Josephine arrive at O'Hare with plenty of time to spare. Josephine moves slowly but steadily, using a cane more for confidence than necessity. At 73, with the added challenge of stroke recovery, she nevertheless projects the dignity and determination that have characterized her entire life. As they settle into their seats, both window seats, across the aisle from each other in row 12, Amara feels a sense of completion, of cycles turning. 6 months ago, she raced through this same airport, terrified of what awaited her in San Francisco. Today, she travels with the mother whose recovery has been nothing short of remarkable, whose strength continues to inspire her daily. Gloria spots them during boarding, her professional demeanor briefly giving way to genuine delight. "Dr. Williams, and this must be your mother. I've heard so much about you, Mrs. Williams." "All good things, I hope," Josephine responds with a smile. "The very best," Gloria assures her. "Your daughter speaks of you with such admiration." As Gloria continues her duties preparing the cabin for departure, Josephine turns to Amara with raised eyebrows. "You two became friends from that viral video situation?" "Something like that," Amara says. "Gloria was kind to me on the worst day, and that's not something you forget." Josephine nods in understanding. "No, it isn't." She gazes out the window at the activity on the tarmac. "You know, I've been thinking a lot during my recovery about what matters. When you're suddenly facing the possibility that you might not speak again, or walk again, or be independent again, it clarifies things." "What's your conclusion?" Amara asks, knowing her mother's reflective nature, her lifelong habit of seeking meaning in experience. That it's the connections that count, Josephine says simply. Not the achievements or the possessions or the status, just the moments when we truly see each other, help each other, understand each other across all the divides. As the plane begins to taxi, Amara thinks about row 14 on that previous flight, about Melissa's initial hostility and eventual vulnerability, about Tyler's innocent curiosity, about Robert's divided attention and belated recognition of what truly matters. She thinks about Gloria's professional courage and personal kindness, about Rafik's empathetic efficiency, about Daniel's steadfast presence at their mother's bedside. She thinks about the viral video that captured 5 minutes of conflict but missed hours of connection, and about her own response that somehow helped transform a moment of tension into an opportunity for understanding. The plane accelerates down the runway, pressing them back against their seats as it defies gravity and lifts into the spring sky. Beside her, Josephine watches the ground fall away with the wonder of someone who understands the preciousness of each journey, each moment, each connection. "Look at that," she says softly as Chicago recedes below them, the vast expanse of Lake Michigan stretching to the horizon. "Isn't it something how far we can go?" And Amara, who has traveled this route before in circumstances so different, can only agree. "Yes, Mom," she says, reaching across the aisle to squeeze her mother's hand. "It really is." Let us know in the comments below.